Isn't that interesting? Means civilian, which meant that Christianity looked at themselves as an order of sorts, almost like the military, because they had a specific lifestyle from which they lived. And so everybody that lived that lifestyle was considered Christian, and those that did not live that lifestyle were understood as pagan. Just a kind of interesting aside. But what it does, as we read these words, we squirm because we were brought up different than that. Where ethically now, where we come at is that we believe that whatever, this is what I learned in college years ago, that whatever our own particular lifestyle is and whatever we decide to do in our lives, that's okay. So long as you don't impede on me, I'm not going to say anything. And we have carried that only in our religious faith as well. Where oftentimes we'll come to church and we'll come to worship God and we'll come to have a good time and whatnot, but nowhere in that process do we look once again of the character that Christ called us into. In fact, how many years, I was trying to think my own mind, how many years has it been since we've sat there and studied Jesus' teachings on the Sermon on the Mount and really struggled with them? It's been a long time, hasn't it? How many of y'all studied the Sermon on the Mount and looked at those teachings? Anybody? Show of hands. I got one. You might be a barbarian, but you didn't spell it. Amen. But see, what that tells us is that as Christians, as people with a book, we're very selective about what we choose to read in the biblical text. For some of us, we might touch the biblical text when we come here on Sunday mornings. For some of us, it might be in Sunday school. Some of us, it might be private devotions. But what it means is that we have not embraced the teachings of Jesus themselves to actually explore them and look at what was meant in context at that time and how do we interpret those things today. For instance, in one of the lessons that I read today, Jesus is speaking of, remember the time where a person, asked for his coat. Remember Jesus says there, he asked for the coat, and then you give them the cloak also. Well, we don't have a clue what they're talking about. But in the context of the time, the words that Jesus uses, what he is talking about, was something very real to a Jew living in occupied Rome. In occupied Rome, it was understood that every person, every Jew, was a servant of Rome, and if a Roman official asked them to do any work for them, they had to stop what they were doing and go to work for Rome.